One of the most common challenges in interviews is answering behavioral questions, especially when they involve pressure. It's not always easy to talk about a high stakes situation while coming across as calm, thoughtful, and professional. In this video, I'm going to show you a strong example of how to answer the question, tell me about a time you had to solve a problem under pressure, and we're going to be using Omni Interview's iStart framework to construct that answer. By the way, greetings and welcome. If you're new here, glad to have you. I'm Warren, founder of Omni Interview. I'm a professional coach specialized in working with non-native English speakers who are preparing for high-stakes interviews, for job interviews, academic interviews, and interviews associated with medical residency and fellowships in the United States. If you haven't already watched my full video, Better Behavioral Answers, the iStart framework, I'd recommend watching that one next. It breaks down each part of the structure and explains how this framework helps you build answers that are both focused and honest. If you haven't seen that video, don't worry. I'll walk you through what the framework does and how it helps guide the interviewer through a clear and trustworthy case study that show your competencies rather than tell them. The iStart framework is useful for developing case studies that show your skills. It's not something that can be used for absolutely every job interview answer, but it's incredibly helpful as a framework for giving strong answers to behavioral interview questions, which is where I see people struggling most. So, here are a few things to keep in mind before we begin. When you're giving a behavioral interview answer, choose one specific moment, not a general theme. Specific stories give the interviewer something concrete to visualize and evaluate. If you describe a general theme, it's more difficult for the interviewer to assess what you actually did. Speak in the past tense also. In English, the past simple is used to describe specific events that happened in the past, while the present simple is usually used for habits or general methods. A strong answer to a behavioral interview question is a case study about what you did, not what you generally do. So, when you speak in the past tense during an interview, you're helping the interviewer understand that you're sharing a real, completed story, not just talking about how you usually approach this kind of event. That small shift helps your story become more grounded, trustworthy, and much easier to follow. It signals that this isn't a theory or routine, it's a real experience. Also, be sure to narrate your thinking, not just what you did. If you explain your actions like a checklist, it sounds like a job training rather than a case study for an interview. Explaining why you made certain decisions, that shows your judgment, problem solving, and awareness, qualities interviewers look for beyond just task completion. And be sure to keep yourself as the protagonist of the story. Remember, it's you who's being interviewed, not your whole company or team. And show your skills through the story. Don't just name them. Saying, I'm a good communicator, it's not convincing on its own. Why should anyone believe that? But if your story reveals how you kept a team calm or updated a client clearly, those skills are demonstrated in a way that the interviewer will remember without you even saying, I'm a good communicator. Let's quickly go over the iStart framework in case it's new for you. For now, let's talk about what each of these letters represents. I stands for introduction. This is a short sentence or two to signal that your story is starting. It's completely optional and helps you zoom in on a specific moment. S stands for situation. Use this section to set the scene briefly. T stands for task. In this section, you define the challenge you needed to solve. A stands for actions and process. Walk through 3, 4, or 5 actions with your reasoning behind them. Be sure to show your internal thinking process. The action and process section is the most important part of your answer, your case study. R stands for results. In this section, share the outcome. And T stands for takeaway. End your case study with one short reflection. What worked well? Or what did you learn from having lived this experience? The purpose of iStart is to help you tell a specific story that shows how you think and how you act, not just what happened. It also helps the interviewer follow your logic and see how your expertise is really applied. So, the question that we're working with here is tell me about a time you had to solve a problem under pressure. This question seems deceptively simple, but it reveals a lot. Interviewers aren't just testing how you handle stress, they're looking at your judgment, your ability to prioritize, and whether you can stay composed when things don't go according to plan. And that's where this framework, the iStart framework, helps. It keeps you focused on one clear situation, walks the listener through how you made decisions, and avoids the trap of jumping straight to the outcome. Think about it this way. When an interview candidate starts thinking in terms of the iStart framework, a question like, tell me about a time you had to solve a problem under pressure becomes much more approachable. Why? Because just from the question, we can begin to understand how a great response might be structured. The situation section is a brief explanation of the problem and the pressure. The task, of course, is solve the problem. In the actions and process section, you explain how you solved the problem despite that pressure. And the results section briefly explains that the problem was solved. Finish up with the takeaway section where you address what this experience taught you. And one thing to remember, interviews, they're not sales pitches. They're more like investigations. The interviewer isn't looking to be impressed. They're trying to figure out if they can trust your judgment. So the best thing that you can do is walk them through real, grounded stories that show them how you work. All right, now let's take a look at the example. That's something that I've had to deal with a few times. Let me give you one specific example. I was managing client operations at a logistics company. We were getting ready to launch a new internal system that connected inventory tracking between three different departments. The go live date was Monday, but on Thursday afternoon, the week before, a team lead found that the inventory module had been set up wrong. It would mislabel incoming shipments. My role was to coordinate the rollout. In that moment, my main goal was to fix the error, test the solution, and also avoid delaying the launch. Let me tell you a little bit about how I did this. The first thing that I did was bring the team together for a short review meeting. I wanted to understand exactly what was broken and where it came from. We found out that the problem came from a mismatch between our ERP system and the input fields in the new software. Once we knew that, I called the developer who had worked on the module. I worked with him to remap the data fields correctly. I like starting with the root cause. I think it's the best way to prevent the same issue from happening again. While the developer was working on the fix, I prepared two messages for the client. One, if we were on track, and the other, if we had to delay at all. That way, we wouldn't lose any time later trying to draft something under even more pressure. Then, I asked the QA team to run a focused test on just the inventory function the next morning. I told them we didn't need a full system check, just confirmation that this fix worked. And that helped us move fast without skipping quality. So by Friday afternoon, QA confirmed that the fix held, and we were able to keep the launch date. After everything was done, I sent a follow up note to our manager and to the client team to explain what had happened, how we fixed it, and what we were going to do in the future to prevent this from happening again. As a result, the system went live on time with no client issues. And internally, we added a final checklist step for all future launches to catch configuration problems early. Looking back, the most important thing was narrowing the team's focus and just solving one issue at a time. That focus, it created a sense of control during a high pressure situation, and it helped the team avoid distractions or panic. By guiding everyone to stay clear on priorities, we were able to stay calm, move efficiently, and keep the project on track without cutting any corners. Let's take a look together at what made that answer work so well. First of all, the task was clearly defined to fix the issue under time pressure while maintaining the original project timeline. The actions were thoughtful and deliberate, showing not only quick problem solving, but also preparation for multiple outcomes. And the speaker also focused a lot on their internal process, their thinking, and they narrated that, and that demonstrated calm leadership, effective prioritization, and strong communication with both internal and external stakeholders. The takeaway reflected maturity, strategic focus, and a capacity to keep others grounded during a potentially chaotic moment, a quality that builds trust with teams and interviewers alike. So, what do you think an interviewer might think after hearing this answer, this case study? I think the interviewer would be thinking, this person knows how to stay focused in a high pressure situation. They don't panic, they communicate well, and solve problems step by step. So now is your turn. Think about a time that you had to act quickly or fix something under pressure. What decisions did you make? And what would you want an interviewer to understand about that moment? If this example helped you, check out my other iStart Answer videos or go back and watch the full breakdown in Better Behavioral Interview Answers, the iStart framework. And if you're preparing for an important interview and want more personalized support, check out my coaching and training programs at Omni Interview. You'll find the link in the description. And finally, if this helped you reflect on your own story, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with a question that you'd like for me to cover in the next video. I'll see you then.